So I thought I would try and up the production quality of these videos a little bit and make a little channel intro using a rotoscoping technique. But it turns out that I don't actually own a graphics tablet, so it is taking a very long time. And I've decided that rather than delay every single video that I've got lined up for the next month or so, I'm just going to release the intro in stages. So here it is so far. The Baltic Mr01 was released in 2021, and like many of the watches I own, I was a little late to the party on this one. It originally released in 3 different colourways, and initially on viewing, my favourite was most definitely the silver dial. The watches sold out almost immediately, and the only real way that you could get hold of them was by paying over double the money on eBay. On the 21st of September 2022, a collected man released a special edition of this watch in collaboration with Baltic called a Blue Roulette, and I waited in the queue and I was very close to making the purchase, but decided in the end that actually I preferred the original designs. This year these watches came back into stock, and I believe they're still readily available through the Baltic website. However, being a French company and living in the UK, if you buy direct, you're going to be paying exchange fees and also import tax on these watches. To try and avoid those taxes, I was hunting around on eBay trying to find one of these watches. I ended up winning one on bid with a silver dial and a beads of rice bracelet, but as I was literally entering my banking details to pay for that, eBay hit me with a suggestion based on my search history for another watch that had literally just been listed that second that was £175 less, and that's what you're seeing me unbox here. The packaging for this watch is really high quality, and actually, as this was second hand, the previous owner had bought another strap to go with this watch and included that. The extra strap is from Gikota, who makes some very nice quality straps and other watch products. I would say it's been colour matched very well. However, it is a lot bulkier than the strap that normally comes with this watch. The Mr01 Salmon ships by default with a stitched navy blue strap. However, the previous owner has obviously selected a slightly different one. They've gone for the lion colour, which actually I think would be my preference if I were to be buying one new. Luckily for me, both the Lion and the Gikota strap come with quick release, so really not a problem swapping between the two. While I can appreciate the effort that someone has gone to in searching the internet for a strap that does perfectly match the dial colour, I think it's hard to argue with the dimensions of the Baltic bespoke strap. It's just so much thinner and fits the purpose of the watch a lot better. So enough about my particular purchase, let's have a deep dive into this watch. So let's talk about use case scenario here. This is an ultra thin modern dress watch for under £500. It comes from the French watch company Baltic, obviously, who assemble their watches in France, buy their accessories from Italy, but the actual watch components are largely from Hong Kong. Let's start with the basics. It looks fantastic. The way those Breguet numerals catch the light in this shot, unbelievable. The watch itself is only actually 8mm thick, with the final 1.9mm being made up by the crystal. The crystal is made out of high-domed hesselite, which is actually 50 times softer than sapphire, so we're not talking about a fully high-end product here, but they are at least honest enough to admit that on their website. One thing you will start to see through these shots is that actually, although that highly reflective surface looks great in direct sunlight, actually when it comes to looking at this and trying to tell the time, often it reminds me of when you're using an iPad or a phone or something like that, and you accidentally lock the screen and then all you can see is a reflection of yourself looking rather silly staring down at it. Something else that I've done that you might have noticed from the very intro to the video is bought a new microphone. And I'd like these videos to be a sort of a record of how they've improved over time. So I decided, you know what, let's just start with it partway through. 36mm is right on the bottom end of what I think I can actually get away with wearing. But for a dress watch, something that's supposed to be fitting under the cuff of a shirt, I think it works quite well, and it certainly suits the profile of this watch. And indeed, with the other dimensions that we're working with here, the lug width, in particular the thickness of the watch, we're harkening back to a very retro style and a feel for the watch where it was far more acceptable for a gentleman to be wearing something a lot smaller on his wrist than some of the modern day behemoths that seem to have grown in popularity over the last 20 years or so. Having a standard 20mm lug width obviously means that there are lots of opportunities to swap this out for other straps, but as we've seen at the start of the video, the one that comes supplied is without doubt the best option. I want to take a moment just to reflect on why I actually purchased the MR01 in the first place. And it might sound weird given the textured dials, the Breguet numerals, the high polish, the razor thin sizing and the tasteful dial colour, but actually it was the inside of the watch that really drew me to make this purchase. The beating heart of the MR01 is the Hangzhou Caliber 5000A, built and imported from Hong Kong and assembled into the final product in France. It has a 42-hour power reserve, 30 meters of water resistance, and there's nothing too remarkable about any of this. But it's the micro rotor that really sets the MR01 apart for me. It's what lets it be so compact and thin, and the finishing, while not Swiss quality by any means, is nevertheless very strong for the box cost. Having said that, if you look up standard factory versions of the movement, the quality and the finishing is exactly the same for a much lower price point. But in terms of overall package, I still think the MR01 represents fantastic value for money, particularly if you don't already own a smaller dress watch. For me personally, I'll always be more interested in a watch if it offers something unique to my collection, be that a movement, a dial colour, a dial texture, a complication, something that I don't already have. When looking at watches with a micro rotor movement at the time, with the budget I had available, the choice for me was between buying a Baltic, shopping for something on AliExpress, or saving for a Yema. And if I'm honest, I'm very glad I opted for the cheaper option, well, at least between the Baltic and the Yema. Because while I think the micro rotor is a very interesting movement to see in action, it does come with its own drawbacks. The chief issue is the rattle. Now, I would never buy a watch to try and impress someone else, but I know that people do. And this is not a watch that you could hand to an interested party and leave with them feeling particularly impressed. Because while I think it looks incredible, it does sound like a children's toy, and the sound does break the impression that this is a high-end, expensive product. I should say that I am happy with my purchase. The MR01 is a watch that's seen a lot of wrist time for me since I purchased it. It would certainly be high up on the list for wearing on a formal occasion or an important meeting at work, anywhere where I have to wear a suit. But would I recommend it to anyone else? It really depends on your reaction to that rattle and how you feel about spending £500 on a watch that doesn't say Swiss made on the dial, that comes with a movement from the Far East. It looks and feels like a great deal, and it really is a lot of watch for the money. It just doesn't sound like one. And it can also turn into a mirror at times when all you really want to do is check the time. While Loom is probably very low down in terms of considerations when purchasing a dress watch, clearly the MR01 has none whatsoever. And it is worth noting that alongside not being viewable at all at night, in certain lights, it's very hard to see what the time is given those reflective surfaces. Now the channel is called Impulsive Watches, and it's called that for a reason. And the thing is, since buying the Baltic for day-to-day wear, I have made another purchase since the summer, and it's the only watch that I have worn since being back at work. It's been ever present, and it's actually changed what my favourite watch brand is. And there's going to be more on that next video. A little addendum to the video, since I started working on the Baltic video, I found there's actually two more models of the MR01 that have been produced in collaboration with Watches of Switzerland that I've got on the screen now. They stick a lot closer to the original design, unlike the blue roulette. And while I'm not a fan of the blue offering, I think that gold looks absolutely stunning. They are, however, limited runs, like the original MR01 release. As far as I'm aware, they're only being sold in Malaysia, Singapore and New Zealand, and only 300 of each colour are being made. So if you're interested in those ones, I feel like you might be out of luck, but I'm sure some will appear on eBay for well over asking price if you're desperate.